Weather Tuesday night, low 60s. Mostly sunny, a slight chance of showers by Wednesday evening, high temperature 80. This is Gary Best, your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
Catch the wave, WHAV, open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Members and underwriters, welcome to the Open Mic Show here on 97.9 WHAV. I want to first thank our members and underwriters for making the programming here at our nonprofit community radio station possible. Again this week, we have our trivia question. If you call 978-374-1900 and are the first to correctly answer it, you will win a $10 gift certificate to use on any purchase you make at Kimball Tavern Antiques, located at the corner of Salem and South Main Streets in Bradford. And we're still looking for the correct answer to the following question. Who was the man who lived on Lowell Avenue near Washington Street that collected and displayed all of the hubcaps that came flying off of cars as they hit potholes in front of his house? The folks over at Kimball Tavern Antiques have given us 3 hints to use. The gentleman's nickname was Keista. His initials are CA, and his first name is Charlie. Also, as we do every month, if you know of anyone celebrating a birthday in the month of July, you can call Chris Porter at 978-374-1900, and he will take down your name and the name, address, and birth date of the person whose birthday takes place in July. That person's name will be entered to win a 7-inch cake, chocolate or vanilla, from Albie D's second-generation Italian bakery, located at 140 South Main Street in Bradford. A brother, sister, mother, father, girl, or boyfriend, significant other, neighbor, or friend, call and Chris will take down all of the information, and he will pick a winner here on Open Mic on June 26th. Also, I have a $10 gift certificate off any cleaning services provided by Easy Way Cleaners. They have 3 locations, 143 White Street in Haverhill, 139 South Main Street in Bradford, and Hampstead Dry Cleaners at Colby Corner, which is at the intersection of routes 111 and 121A in Hampstead, New Hampshire. All you need to do is be the first caller tonight to become a new member or renew your existing membership at the $25 level, and this $10 gift certificate to Easy Way Cleaners is yours. And last but certainly not least, since we're talking a fair amount of sports for a good part of the program tonight, the nice folks at Jabberwocky Bookshop in the Tannery at 50 Water Street in Newburyport have donated a book for us for tonight's broadcast. David Ortiz and sports radio talk show host Michael Hawley have written Ortiz's autobiography entitled Pappy, My Story. This book is currently on the top 10 list for nonfiction in the greater Boston area. Whether you're interested in getting the book for yourself or for an upcoming baseball fan's birthday gift, or any occasion for that matter, it can be yours if you're the first caller to start or renew a $100 membership to Haverhill's own public radio station, 97.9 WHAV. Just call 978-374-1900. You have the option of either using a credit or debit card over the phone, or you can mail a check here to our studios. Once you've purchased your membership, we will make arrangement to get Poppy's book to you. So, my first guest on the program tonight is attorney Joe Edwards. Joe and I co-hosted an open mic program about a month ago and talked some sports, and Joe has been nice enough to come back into the studio this week. As we all know, the Red Sox have managed to climb into first place during that time frame. We also chatted a little bit about golf, so we're going to be spending the next half hour talking about this past weekend of sports. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Frank. It's my pleasure to be here on WHAV and to be with you, Haverhill's newest and most astute radio host.
We'll see.
You've done a lot to make the show very entertaining. Not that it wasn't in the past, but your focus seems to have changed a little bit. It's not strictly politics. It's good to talk about sports tonight.
Yes, I got you right in here.
Thanks. Good to be back again. So over the weekend in golf, if I may, we had the second of three majors that are played here in the United States, and that's the United States Open. The three are the Masters, which was won earlier by Sergio Garcia, his first major. The U.S. Open, which was won by Bruce Koepka, his first major, and the PGA, which will be held later in the year. And then there's also the British Open, which is referred to only as the Open. That'll be held later in the year also. So, as I said, Bruce Koepka, that's Koepka, he won.
Yes, he did.
He's traveled all over the world. He's played in the European Tour. He's played in golf tournaments in Africa, and now he's here, and he played tremendously. The last day of golf, which was yesterday, was just as exciting as can be. There were several players tied at 11 under, then it went to 12 under, and then there were several players tied at 13 under, and suddenly Bruce pulled away, and he won by, I think, 4 strokes over second place, and his final score was 16 strokes under par after 4 days of golf.
Yep.
So our applauds to him, and congratulations to him for winning his first major championship, a young man in his early 20s. Now, this was played at a course in Wisconsin known as Erin Hills. Erin Hills has a strange background. There was a man who was a very well-to-do businessman who lived in Erin Hills, and he was watching the U.S. Open and other major tournaments being played at other courses throughout the country.
Yeah.
And he said, we should be able to have a course here in Erin Hills to have the U.S. Open. And sure enough, they said his net worth before he started was about $100 million. And he ended up broke.
That's a good start.
Yeah, it's a
and
great
he ended
start.
up broke?
He ended up broke. He
Wow,
built the
that is
course.
some construction company he hired.
He built the course, he designed the course himself, and things were going good.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get the play that he wanted, and he had to remortgage everything, and then he lost that, and finally he sold it. And from what I heard and what I read, my investigation indicates that he's just a poor boy now from Wisconsin.
Wow.
Although he was there, not as an invited guest, but a paying guest to come and see the U.S. Open being played at his
Seriously?
former golf course. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's quite a story.
Yeah.
And you think of a state like Wisconsin, with the weather they have, very similar to what we have here in New England. They don't get that winter play, so they're not getting the proceeds that some of the courses in California or Arizona
Such a
or
short season.
Florida.
Yeah.
Right? So that was a big setback for him. So I guess we have someone that wants to call us and talk to you, Frank.
Let's see here. Let's find him. And he is... Where'd he go? Caller, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, how are you this evening?
Good. 3 things.
Yes.
First, I wanted to give a shout-out to Tim and to wish him well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I wanted to welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much.
And then I have a birthday.
You do.
Yeah, for July 1st, it's my brother.
July 1st.
Hello?
Yep, I'm right here. I'm writing it down. That's awesome. Do I dare guess how old your brother is, or are we going to keep that to ourselves?
Oh, he's, let's see, he's going to be 67
Good for him.
and still working.
And still working.
Yeah, he wants to work till he's 70.
He does. I wanted to work until I was 60, and that was 5 years ago, and so far it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
I get.
That's his thinking, too, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 72 and I'm still working full time. So.
The worst thing is retirement.
I'm
in my
surrounded by
opinion.
workers. Now I'm starting to feel guilty.
No.
Did
Now, I missed you were talking to an attorney, but you had said you were going to have a sports show, so I don't know.
Well, Joe and I have started talking about the USGA's Open, which was held over the weekend. The Boston Red Sox managed to move up into first place with a win last night by 1 run, I believe. And later on, later on this evening, we've got a couple of other guests. who are going to be talking about Haverhill High School football, Michael Young, and then Paul Magliocchetti will be in between 8 and 8:30 to talk about an event he's hoping to have here in Haverhill later this summer into the fall.
Well, sounds good. Football is not my forte, so I will say adios.
Okay, well, thanks very much for calling in. We'll put your brother's name in the hat, and on the 26th, Chris will pick a winner. Good luck, and good luck
Bye.
to your brother. Thanks very much for calling.
So what's your pleasure, Frank? Do you want to continue on with golf? Do you want to go on to the Red Sox or hockey or whatever?
Well, I want to, just with golf for just a second, that's a very interesting course. And it was, I mean, they all look kind of challenging. But yesterday, when I watched one of the golfers, it's his first time, I think his first year out on tour, and I think he did like a triple bogey on this one hole. He was down in the weeds. He hit the ball onto the green a little too hard, went down the other side, went down the steep embankment. Then he chipped it and ended up in a sand trap. And then he chipped it out of the sand trap up close to the hole and managed to get a triple bogey. That's my kind of golf game right
mine
there.
too. I've had many triple bogeys in my career as a terrible amateur golfer.
And the thing is, too, it reminds me an awful lot. You spoke about the British Open coming up later on this year, and that course reminded me, as far as challenges go, it reminded me an awful lot of the British Open course. Some of those sand traps, the elevation changes and the slope and everything in those greens, and then yesterday they had the winds
That's right.
blowing like
Wind
a
was
son
big
of a
factor.
gun. Like it wasn't challenging enough at all already. Let's throw a 20-mile-an-hour wind at them and see how they do. It was crazy. My hat goes off to anybody that got under par on that course.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, if I remember correctly, I didn't see the middle rounds, but it was my understanding in the middle rounds that it rained a little bit too.
It did.
Oh.
Yeah, it did.
Well, that's again, that's typical of the British Open. You see a lot of that in the British Open.
Wind and rain at the British Open.
Yes. And then, of course, the traps. I've never seen a trap like that in my
Pothole bunkers.
Yes. Oh, my God. It's wicked. So, yeah, that was a great win. That really was a great win. And it was interesting, too, because ordinarily the golf tournaments are carried on NBC or CBS. Fox, for some reason, picks up this particular tournament.
Yeah, Fox has a contract now with the PGA to they're going to have more and more golf tournaments on Fox now.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they had a nice crew working the game, working
they did, yeah.
working the tournament.
Joe Buck.
Yes,
One of
and there's a veteran golfer, and he usually does or goes on to the ESPN coverage for the Masters. I can't think of his name right now. He does really good analysis, and that's the part of the game I really enjoy. I think the announcers in any sport can make all the difference in the world, and
Oh, sure.
and they did a great job over the weekend.
Right, especially those that are prominent and experienced in that particular sport.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want a golf analyst doing football for us or football analyst doing golf for us.
Sometimes it sounds like it when you listen to these
Right, it
programs.
does,
One
it does.
one thing I did want to mention before we get into baseball, something that I watched when it was run out in San Francisco, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. It's over in Bermuda this year, and that is the race, the America's Cup.
Right.
I've watched that the last couple of weekends, and it's interesting because when NBC broadcast that event say 4 or 5 years ago, they didn't pay any rights fees for the broadcast at all.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's interesting.
And they broadcast the event. They have cameras on the boats. They have helicopters up in the air. They've got shots from the shore. They have cameras mounted underneath the boat because, as you know, as they're going along the water, they rise right up out of the water. And you hear all of the sound of the crew. You hear all of the sounds of the boat, the creaking, just tremendous races. The weather has been really, really good. We're going to talk a little bit of baseball with Joe right after this on the Open Mic. We'll be right back.
Open mic.
Frank Komola and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
Stay informed each day with local news, coupled with FSN's worldwide coverage. 97.9 WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. One of the things I've always wanted to do with a talk show is to not just get involved with the topics, but to get inside the person behind the topics. Because for every topic, for every issue, there's a person behind it with passion and compassion for whatever that issue is. And that's what your hometown is all about.
Your Hometown with Mark LeMay, Friday nights at 6:30 on 97.9 FM WHAV.
WHAV. Open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Open Mic Show. I'm here with my co-host tonight, Joe Edwards. We're talking a little sports. As I mentioned before we took the break, if any of you get the chance to tune in to NBC and listen to the America's Cup, or watch the America's Cup, I should say, it's quite an event. They go out of their way to present a number of different camera angles from the helicopters above, boats run along the side of the racing boats, underneath the hull, up on the deck. They pick up on the voices of the crew as they're making adjustments during the race. And if there's ever an event where it's not over until it's over, it's this sailing event. Over the weekend, I believe it was New Zealand and Switzerland that were racing. New Zealand had an 18-second lead going into the final leg, and they had some hydraulic issues that all of a sudden developed. Their speed went down to nothing. Switzerland came racing along to catch up to them, and they just missed beating New Zealand by a second. These things are flying along at 43 knots, anywhere from 30 to 43 knots. They are flying across the water. It's a great take. If you get an opportunity to listen to it, I think it's on every weekend. You might want to tune in. So let's see. We've talked golf a little bit. So we're going to move on to baseball a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of an exciting weekend for our hometown team.
It was.
Jumping into first place.
Yeah, they won 6-5 at Houston, which is a National League team. And
Not an easy place to play.
Nope.
Nope.
Not at all.
Nope. And I mean, between the ballpark, and that's a hell of a team they've got this year, and playing on the road, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, a couple of the other teams, including our friends the Yankees down in New York, took a nosedive, which certainly helped the situation.
So we're barely in first place, but we are in first place.
I'll take it. Yep.
It'll make for a great year. Should be interesting right to the end.
I remember the last time you and I were talking, I was somewhat concerned about David Ortiz, as we have his book here, no longer being in the lineup, because there were moments like 2-3 weeks ago when the team found themselves in a situation where Ortiz coming up to bat with men on and being down 2 or 3 runs was the perfect situation for him. He'd always come through in the past, and we're very, very fortunate because there's a couple of pitchers like Porcello that so far this year has been has had his issues. Hopefully he can get things turned around. What a terrible start for him after having such a Cy Young Award-winning season
That's right.
last year.
Yeah, he's, I don't know, 3-8 this year?
Yep.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, 3 wins, 3-9.
Oh, 3-9.
3-9.
Oh, it's worse than I thought.
Yeah, it is. Isn't that something? Yet they have their ace this year is Chris Sale.
Of all people, isn't that something?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And on the back end of games, if you can keep the game close, you've got a great reliever coming in to close out the game. He's having a fabulous season. It's fantastic. It's like old times.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just hard to figure out what's happening with Porcello. Apparently he's healthy.
Yep.
Doesn't have any issues there at all. And, he's just 3-9. He seems strong, healthy, but it's just something about his sinker from what I've discovered lately.
Yeah,
His sinker
it's
isn't
not
working that
sinking
well.
quite as much as it should.
Or maybe too much,
he's
stays up.
He's always been good at throwing strikes,
Yep.
but they drop into the strike zone, and people swing over them. And this year, he seems to be delivering the ball right into the heart of the plate.
That's it.
That's not a good thing.
No, because he lost Saturday. I don't think he really pitched that long. He gave up, I think, 3 runs in the first inning, and things just went backwards from there on. But he's got a good attitude.
Yeah, hopefully, with hitters many times in those situations, they start hearing all kinds of advice. They start trying all kinds of different things to get out of their hitting slumps. Hopefully, Rick does not have everybody and their uncle coming up to him and saying, I noticed this or I noticed that. One of the things they're talking about doing is changing the catcher that he uses, just to develop a little bit different level of comfort zone, being on the same page. What's that?
The pitcher's the quarterback. He runs the whole game.
That's right.
The most important player on the field, I think.
Absolutely. So whatever it takes, because can you imagine how good they would be if he turns a season around?
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And I did not see too much of the game last night, but David Price did pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah. What did you go, 5-6 innings?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did okay. So he's coming around. It takes a little time for somebody that's out of the game for a little while to come back and get his confidence back and feel strong and get his rhythm back.
Yeah, I was surprised, honestly, that they brought him back as soon as they did, because he was pitching down in the minor leagues, and I didn't think, he had like 2 outings, and he really didn't look all that good.
No.
And I thought, God, he's going to come up to the majors and he's going to get killed.
He did. He did for 1 game anyway, maybe 2, and now he's coming along. It just takes time.
Yeah,
it
does.
Time.
It does.
It's a head game and it's a physical game. But, getting back to Chris Sale, and he's pitched 99 innings as of his last start, including his last start. And he's given up basically 74 hits, and he's struck out 136.
136 he struck out?
136 strikeouts.
My God.
Now that's a hell of a record. So he's this year's ace to date.
Mm-hmm.
But pitchers have shoulder injuries, they have wrist injuries, they have arm injuries, they have issues. So they need to have that backup with someone like Porcello. If he gets going, as you just said, they'll be real good. And Sale actually hit a double the other night. The last game he started, and I think he ended up scoring too. So he could hit and he can run the bases too.
Yeah, he was on second base at one point. My wife and I were talking about this, and our second baseman Dustin Pedroia was up, and he struck out.
Oh, is that what it was?
And Sale was a little upset that he got stranded at second base because over the last 3 or 4 games he's come up short in terms of run production from the team.
Right.
So he's all upset because, he got this double and then never got pushed across the plate. And Pedroia was pretty well bent out of shape because he struck out with him on second base. I think they lost the game that night.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. So it's another one of his, I think he lost 2 games 1-0. In one game, 3-0. Those are his 3 losses. So he didn't get much support from the batters at all.
Yeah, I got to hand it to him because I don't think I could maintain my composure after
That's right.
something
You wouldn't
like
have
that.
too many friends that you or I would.
No way.
We'd be, I don't know. It's just,
I'd love to be a fly on the wall inside of that locker room after that went down, before the press got into the room.
there's so much going on in sports. Look, in the Patriots had a couple mini camps, and they'll be getting ready for, in August, they'll start playing preseason exhibition games and things like that. They're getting ready. They've got a ton of people to cut.
Yeah, they've got some decisions to make.
And they will. They seem to have been able to make the right decisions over the years, haven't they?
Amazingly so. Yeah, you would think after the number of Super Bowls that they won, that all of us sitting at home would pledge our faith in whatever decisions they make. But it's funny, every season, some player that is good and also might be average, but has a lot of support from the fans, leaves, and the first thing you start hearing about is, oh, they're done. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
This is the year they're going to crash.
Yeah.
And it never happens.
Yeah, and they say, what's the story with Belichick? How can he cut somebody like that? He must not like him. The replacements they have,
Yeah.
they're young and hungry.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think it's a question of liking or not liking somebody at all. It's all about performance,
Yeah.
and of course, salaries play into the whole thing as well. I'm amazed when they have camp open up and they have practices and they've got like 10, 15,000 people show up. There are teams that would beg to have a crowd that size show up to a regular season game,
yeah.
let alone a practice.
Yeah.
The waiting list to get on the season tickets is like 5 years. It's not cheap to go to a game. It's like $60, I think, to park your car out in the parking lot. And yet they fill the place every year. The season ticket list stays the way it is. Their TV ratings are unbelievable.
They are.
They're on almost every other week, whatever game they are involved in.
They are.
Actually, let's see, I think it's in November. They're going to be playing out in Denver.
Right.
My nephew lives out in Denver, and I think my wife and I may have an opportunity to go out there and go to a game with him and his wife. So
That's nice.
I'm pretty excited about that.
That's a good place to play. It's a good team, and it's a different atmosphere because of the altitude that they're at. And Brady doesn't seem to have any problem playing out there, although they lost a game 2 years ago that they could have won and gone to the Super Bowl again. But it's great. I think it's a pretty good chance I'm going to go down to Tampa in October, and I think that's a Thursday night game
Oh, yeah.
to watch. I've been to a few away games, mostly in Miami. It's a nice stadium to get in and out of traffic-wise and everything. Parking's pretty good. And you go to see the Patriots here. And everybody's pretty friendly about the whole situation. You don't get anything like, I think I'd be afraid to go to a Jets game with any Patriots hat on, a Patriots shirt, or a Giants game or anything like that.
I think if I get out to Denver, I think I'm pretty much going to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, well, you have to know when to do that, when not to do it.
Yes.
To the
Yes,
sheriff's
evaluate the crowd around you and go from there.
Right.
Uh-huh. Count the number of beers that they drink and evaluate the situation going forward from there.
Yeah.
I've thought several times about going down to Miami with my wife to see them play down there. Unfortunately, a lot of the seasons, they've already kind of, when they play down there, I wish they'd play earlier in the season because they play late in the season down there.
Right.
And a lot of times the division is already decided.
Yeah.
And so, that's, for me, it's a level of uncertainty about whether I want to commit. But the stadium looks awesome.
2015 was the first game of the season. Playing at Miami.
Yep. Well, we're coming up on the end of a half hour.
That's great.
We've got another guest coming on after the news at 7. Author Michael Cormier returns here to the studio to discuss Michael's first play, Saltonstall's Trial, and a presentation he will make at the Buttonwoods Museum later this month. We'll be right back with the open mic.
Open mic.
Frank Komola and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
It's 7 o'clock.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. Could the potential for a bigger payday inject new interest in the mayor's race this fall? On Tuesday, a proposed ordinance will come before the City Council that would increase the mayor's salary by $20,000 to $110,000 a year. It would raise councilors' salaries as well, but by a lesser proportion. The council meets beginning at 7 p.m. in the Theodore Pelosi City Council chambers on the second floor of Haverhill City Hall. It would be the second time in just over 6 months that city councilors would see an increase in their paychecks. In April, councilors' expenses were folded into their annual salary, the result of IRS rules governing the practice, explained City Solicitor William Cox. While the overall effect was neutral in terms of income, the resulting increase in salary will be reflected in the councilors' contributions to their retirement accounts. Councilors' base salaries hadn't changed in 30 years. The shift resulted in the council president receiving an annual pay of $14,384 from a previous $9,500. The other 8 councilors' pay rose from $12,884 from a previous $8,000. The newly proposed raises would nearly double the council's pre-April paychecks, setting the council president's salary at $18,000 and the other councilors' pay at $15,000. According to council rules, the ordinance must be held for 10 business days before it can be acted upon. All the raises would go into effect on January 1st, 2018, just in time for Inauguration Day for the winners of this fall's election. Residential water users in Haverhill face an average of a 10% increase in their bills for fiscal year 2018, which begins July 1st. City councilors will be asked to set the rates as part of their approval of the city's fiscal year 18 budget of $178.5 million when they meet Tuesday beginning at 7 o'clock. If councilors set the fees sought by Mayor James Fiorentini, water rates will climb from $2.90 from $2.78 per 100 cubic feet. Wastewater rates will jump from $4.88 to $4.29. Assuming a family of 4 in Haverhill uses the national average of 1,200 cubic feet per month, their combined wastewater bill will rise about $100, from $1,018 in the current fiscal year to $1,120 in the fiscal year that begins July 1st, which is the day bills reflect the new rates arriving in customer mailboxes. These rates are necessary to meet revenue requirements to operate the water and wastewater divisions, said Deputy DPW Director Robert Ward. According to the city's fiscal year 2018 budget, it will cost $10,994,000 to operate the city's wastewater facilities and $8,281,000 for water operations. While property taxes, fees, and state aid generally pay for city government, water and sewer ratepayers pay the cost of those services directly. The increase in wastewater rates is also due to the final year of ratepayer contributions to the first phase of odor abatement improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant. The city received notice Friday of a $900,000 grant to help turn around standardized test scores at Tilton School. Mayor James Fiorentini and School Superintendent James Scully said the 2-year state education grant focuses on transforming the environment, culture, and instruction at the elementary school. The turnaround plan is designed to increase rigorous learning outcomes for all students, a statement said. This grant will help us achieve our goals with the turnaround plan that was developed and submitted by the dedicated teachers at the school, Fiorentini said. WHAV first reported in January the city's plans to seek a state turnaround grant. At the time, the total being discussed was only a third of what the city was ultimately awarded. The awarding of this grant is indicative of the hard work of the principal and the staff at the Tilton School, Scully said. They are on the front lines every day trying to do what is right for the children in the Tilton neighborhood. Tilton principal Bonnie Antikowiak added, "It started with the We Believe motto and the teachers believing in the students and the students believing in themselves. We showed increases in our scores last year, which gave us the ability to apply for this grant. The teachers were the driving force behind the turnaround plan. When you believe, great things happen," she said. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin B. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. Russia says it will regard U.S. coalition aircrafts in Syria as targets after the downing of a Syrian military plane over the weekend. French police have launched a terror investigation after a man ran his car into a police van on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And UK authorities have named the suspect believed to have driven his car into a group of Muslims outside a mosque in London.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Best with wave weather. Scattered showers and thunderstorms, some locally heavy during the night, low temperature into the upper 60s. And then breaking clouds developing on Tuesday, humidity dropping back a bit during the afternoon, 80 to 84. Scattered clouds and comfortable weather Tuesday night, low 60s. Mostly sunny, a slight chance of showers by Wednesday evening, high temperature 80. This is Gary Best, your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
97.9 WHAV is the only FM station assigned to the City of Haverhill. Your membership is critical to continued operation. It's easy to join. Just click on the membership tab at WHAV.net. 97.9 FM WHAV.
Catch the wave. WHAV. Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. Before I introduce my next guest, I just want to mention again that I have a $10 gift certificate off any cleaning services provided by Easy Way Cleaners. They have 3 locations, 143 White Street in Haverhill, 139 South Main Street in Bradford, and Hampstead Dry Cleaners at Colby Corner, which is at the intersection of Routes 111 and 121A in Hampstead, New Hampshire. Just be the first caller tonight to become a new member or renew your existing membership at the $25 level, and this $10 gift certificate to Easy Way Cleaners is yours. Next, sitting to my left on your radio dial, and I say that because I listen to an awful lot of sports on the radio, and the sports announcers always say the Patriots are moving from left to right on your radio dial. I've never quite understood that, but it sounded great to say. So sitting to my left on your radio dial is author Michael Cormier. He is back to discuss Haverhill's connection to the Salem Witch Trials of 1692. I had him and director Miriam Sear on the program last week for about 15 minutes. They graciously gave up 15 minutes of their segment to me last week to discuss the wall at Heels, a replica of the Vietnam Memorial Wall. Paul White, Judge Advocate for the Haverhill Veterans Council, gave us a preview of that weekend's programs. So I have Michael back this week to talk more about his play, the Salem Witch Trials, and their connection to Haverhill. Michael will be discussing all of that at the Buttonwoods Museum, which is located at 240 Water Street in Haverhill, at 6:30 on Tuesday, June 27th. Welcome to the Open Mic.
Thank you, Frank.
You're very welcome. This is an interesting event you have coming up. You've got the discussion of Haverhill's connection to the Salem Witch Trials. You are going to be reading from one of the scenes of your first play.
That's correct.
And there'll be a discussion of Nathaniel Saltonstall, who was a major figure in the beginnings of the Salem Witch Trial, and there's quite a lot that took place after he chose to remove himself from those trials.
That's correct. He removed himself just at the apex of the scare and the beginning of the trials. In fact, he sat on one of those trials.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, he did?
He did. He sat on the very first one, the trial of Bridget Bishop.
Uh-huh.
And after that, he refused to participate any longer.
Mm.
And that's when he became an outspoken opponent of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And his position was not a popular decision at all at that point. It seemed like, to me, quite a few of the people in the area were all for doing a number on the individuals that were accused of being witches.
At this point in time, now Nathaniel Saltonstall was appointed. The trials began on June 2nd, 1692.
Okay.
The very first trial was Bridget Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost a kind of a test trial to see how they were going to do things. But the judges had been appointed probably a couple of weeks earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Nathaniel Saltonstall was one of them. There were altogether 9 judges that sat on those trials during that period of time. But at that particular time, when he sat on that first trial, it was throughout Essex County, not just Salem, but Essex County in general, I think people were believing that this was real. It was a Puritan culture.
Mm-hmm.
It was there was a lot of superstition. And I think that most people believed this was really going on. So, yes, it was an unpopular position for Nathaniel Saltonstall to take at that particular time when the hysteria, the paranoia was at its
highest.
Greatest, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what, after he made the decision to remove himself after that first trial, tell us a little bit about kind of the course that his life took from that point on. It was a tough time for him, was it not?
It was a tough time. He, after he quit the court, he became, as I mentioned, a vocal opponent of the trials. And at that particular point in time, there were very few people really speaking out because most people were afraid to. They knew that there would be consequences to themselves. Fortunately for him, he was well connected, so even though he later was fingered, they said that he was a part of the witch coven.
Wow.
Yes, he did. That's what happened to a lot of people when they spoke up or opposed the core people who were making the accusations. So it happened to him as well. Fortunately, as I said, he was well connected.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a really very, very good reputation as a judge. And so he weathered it, and nothing ever became of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to also understand that as the hysteria reached I guess I would call it a ridiculous crescent, several people were accused who had great bearing in the society. And as a matter of fact, I think it was Governor Phipps's wife, or Governor Phipps himself, was accused. Reverend Hale, who had been a big factor in getting the thing rolling back in the spring, his wife was accused.
Wow.
So this, by then, it had, people had stopped believing so much. They had started to think that there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
But still, he was in danger. He put himself in danger. And then from there, his career took a little bit of a downturn, and he began drinking. And there are stories that are that appear in several books about, for example, Samuel Sewell, who was one of the judges and a very prominent merchant in Boston. He was also friends with Nathaniel. and he made a couple of entries in his diary that he was keeping at the time,
Right.
about Nathaniel's drinking problem that he was developing at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that what happened is, for a time he was, who knows how long, but for a time he was drinking more than he should have been, and that was a big deal for Puritans, especially a Puritan in a position that he was.
Oh, sure.
Heavy drinking was frowned upon with anybody, but one of these, society's bigwigs.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Doing all
The
that
scrutiny
drinking says something.
was even higher when it came to a person of his reputation.
That's correct. He was expected,
and his position in society.
He was expected to keep, even more than today. Of course, all of our politicians and government officials are expeced to keep a clean,
Clean bill of health, so to speak.
Clean bill of health and a clean reputation, and
yeah.
not do anything that would even appear wrong. Well, Nathaniel was part of a Puritan society that expected that.
Yeah, the standards were even higher back then.
Even more than they are today.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So that was kind of a big deal, and it says something about how all of this affected him.
We're going to talk more, a lot more, after we come back from this break. We'll be right back.
Open mic.
Frank Komola and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
For more in-depth coverage of the news, visit WHAV's website at WHAV.net. Your hometown just isn't about topics. It's about the people behind the topics and the people that are affecting those topics and that are being affected by those topics. That is what your hometown is all about.
Your Hometown with Mark LeMay, Friday nights at 6:30 on 97.9 FM WHAV.
Community Spotlight.
Haverhill Triad, a partnership of senior citizens, law enforcement agencies, and councils on aging, agree to work together to reduce criminal victimization of older citizens. The Triad has purchased a shredder to destroy papers that identity thieves steal from seniors and use to exploit them. Anything that contains personal information that is being disposed of should be shredded. The shredder is available free of charge for use by seniors at the Haverhill Citizen Center every Wednesday and Friday, 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. The center is located at 10 Welcome Street. For information, contact Joel at 978-374-2390 any Wednesday or Friday, 12 to 2:30 p.m. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Frank Komola.
WHAV. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
We're back. I'm back with Michael Cormier, who is an author and playwright who will be taking on a number of challenges on the 27th, Tuesday, June 27th, at the Buttonwoods Museum. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael here for a few minutes to talk about what we have going on that night and a little bit more about Miriam Sear, who will be directing his presentation at the Buttonwoods Museum.
That's right. June 27th is the annual meeting of the Buttonwoods Board of Trustees and so forth. And afterwards, every year they have a guest presenter. This year it happens to be me. And I'm going to be talking about the Salem Witch Trials in general and Haverhill's connection to them.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't realize it, but not only Nathaniel Saltonstall was connected to them, but there were 6 women from Haverhill who were accused as witches.
Oh, no kidding.
Right. So it'll be an interesting night. I'll be able to tell people some things they might not know about Haverhill's experience during that period of time. We're also going to be having a memorial for the worshiping tree, or I should call it the worshiping oak, as it's known, which was a great oak that had stood in that site for about 400 years.
Wow.
And it fell back in, I think, February or March.
Right.
Finally, and after many years of trying to keep it going. And there's going to be a memorial to it. And that figures in with my play because the scene that we're going to be doing from Saltonstall's trial that night is going to take place under the worshiping tree. In other words, I wrote this scene under the worshiping tree last fall.
Oh, wow.
And that night we're going to, do a memorial for the tree, and at the same time we're going to do a scene from my play where the tree figures in. So it all dovetails together very well.
And you'll talk a little bit more about Nathaniel Saltonstall. And I think from what you told me when we had you on last week, a lot of the information that you put together about him actually came from a lot of the people who were a part of his life and a part of the community. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct. At one time, I estimate I'd done about 150 hours worth of research. And I sifted through every book I could find. I went down to Salem and I bought books off the shelves where I had to. I bought them from Amazon. I went to the PBD Essex Museum. I went to the archives at the Haverhill Public Library. And what I found is that there wasn't a lot to tell me what Nathaniel Saltonstall's life was like other than a lot of court records because he was a magistrate.
Right.
But those are very limited. I had to learn a lot of what I did learn about him from finding out about other people at that time. Hannah Dustin.
Yeah.
Hannah Dustin was was around at that time. In fact, it was only 5 years after the Salem Witch Trials that Hannah Dustin had her little tirade up the Merrimack River. And
not a quiet community at all.
So I found myself reading anything I could about anybody from that era.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I found out a lot of information about what Haverhill was like at the time. And it was very interesting. I was able to piece together what his life was like from learning about his father-in-law, the Reverend John Ward, who was one of the founders of Haverhill, and other people that had been his friends at the time.
Right.
I may have mentioned before, he was friends with John Hawthorne, one of the witch trial judges, one of the more famous ones. He was friends with Samuel Sewell. He knew just about everybody that was involved in those trials. Wow. So for him to stand up and take a stand against them, he was basically, saying to his friends, I reject everything that you're standing for in this position. So it had to have been a very hard thing for him to do. But getting back to the research, what I found is that he was a remarkable man for his popularity as a judge. Judges weren't popular back then among the lower classes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they tended to side with the upper classes.
Yep.
And but he was very popular because he was seen as a very fair judge. He was always looking for a reasonable solution to problems. And people really supported him in that regard. So he had a very, very good reputation. And I think that the rest of it, I just had to imagine what this man must have been like. I mean, the play it's fiction, but it's based as strongly as I could make it on fact. And I think I got his personality and his thinking across as well as it could be under the circumstances.
Now, last week we had Miriam Sear, the director, on,
Yes.
and we had a little bit of a chance to chat with her. She wasn't able to make it in here tonight, but we did want to spend a few minutes talking about her and her involvement, her background, and where you hope to go with this going forward.
Well, I just a little of my background with her. I met Miriam through a mutual friend, Linda Greenstein, and I discovered that Miriam is a very, very talented theater director. She spent many years on the London stage as an actor.
Yeah.
And she decided to get out of acting. And I think she's out of acting altogether now, but all she's doing now is directing.
Right.
She's very, very busy.
Yeah.
And if you'd seen any of the plays I've seen down at Stage 284 in Hamilton,
Right.
What she puts together down there on the stage that she has, the space that she has, is absolutely phenomenal. And it impressed me so much that I really, really wanted to work with her.
Yeah, yeah.
So Miriam liked my play. She liked the idea. She
Uh-huh.
liked the idea that it was a local story. She saw the appeal in it.
Right.
She realized, and I think one of the things that we all wanted to make clear on was that this is not a rehash of the Crucible or anything else that's been done
Right.
with the Salem Witch Trials. This is a very personalized story about one man facing some pretty severe choices.
Yeah.
Some choices that in which he could come out on the bad end, but also he had to really wrestle with his conscience at times. So I think he was really wrestling with not only the public but himself. I think Miriam saw that. She saw what my vision was, and she picked up on it immediately. And she started making suggestions. We started working together.
Yeah.
And it's still a collaboration. We're still working on it and
Right.
working out, ironing out the little things that need to be ironed out. But I'm very, very happy to be working with her because I think she's going to bring this play to life and really bring that moment and that man to life.
Right.
And that's very important to me.
Sure. Absolutely.
This isn't just a play about, this is a play about Haverhill. This is a play about the Salem Witch Trials, but mostly it's a play about a man and his times.
And a very courageous man when
Exactly.
you look in the climate of politics, for example, over the last, say, 20 years, and how difficult it has been for certain individuals in certain situations literally to stick their neck out. And when you consider the hysteria that you've talked about that was taking place at the time, it's almost a good thing. It is, in fact, a good thing that he had the reputation not only within the well-to-do in the community, but he had established a reputation within the poorer segments of society. And so he staked his reputation, and he literally used his reputation to basically stand up and say, essentially, this is wrong.
That's right. And his doing so, I think, if you believe in karma, I think that I think that he started a bit of karma going among the Saltonstall family. As you know,
Yep.
the Saltonstall family's been famous for a very long time.
He started the ball rolling, I think.
He's the one that started rolling.
Yeah.
His son was the governor of Connecticut.
Yeah.
There were judges, there were senators. We all know Leverett Saltonstall from back in the
Sure.
40s, 50s.
Yeah.
They all started with, they're all just direct descendants.
Wow. I had no idea.
And it all started with a man who had that kind of a conscience. And I think that says a lot about the family.
So, it's been a quick half hour. Michael will be appearing at the Buttonwoods Museum, 240 Water Street in Haverhill, at 6:30 on Tuesday evening, June 27th. It's free and open to the public. They will have refreshments there as well. This is really something I don't think you want to miss. This is one courageous man, and Michael has done an awful lot of research. He's gotten together with a great director, and I'm very anxious to see this play go forward, and hopefully we'll all get an opportunity to see the entire production real soon. I want to thank Michael for being in with us tonight. That wraps up this half hour of the open mic, and we'll be back in a little while.
Open mic!
Frank Komola and the open mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
It's 7:31.
97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave!
On air or online, 97.9 WHAV serves you. Twice an hour weekdays, keep up to date with exclusive local news. Find out about civic events on Community Spotlight every quarter hour, and better prepare with wave weather every 30 minutes. For talk, there's Open Mic Show Monday nights, in your hometown Friday nights. Mass Moments, Melinda's Garden Moment, Soundbeat, and Insight Daily complete the spectrum. Hear classic comedy and drama 7 nights a week at 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Finally, a unique blend of rock and roll hits round out the entertainment. Stay with 97.9 WHAV, the only Haverhill-based news source.
Wave weather!
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Best with wave weather. Scattered showers and thunderstorms, some locally heavy during the night, low temperature into the upper 60s. And then breaking clouds developing on Tuesday, humidity dropping back a bit during the afternoon, 80 to 84. Scattered clouds and comfortable weather Tuesday night, low 60s. Mostly sunny, a slight chance of showers by Wednesday evening, high temperature 80. This is Gary Best, your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Welcome back to the Open Mic program. I'm Frank Komola. Our next guest in this half hour of the Open Mic Show is Michael Young. Michael is the editor and publisher of a 2-volume book, which I have right here to give back to him, of research, statistics, and records of Haverhill football that was painstakingly, and I looked through this, painstakingly compiled by his father, Ernest V. Young, Jr. The book is entitled 1890 to 2015, Hillies' 125 Years of Haverhill Football, A Statistical History. Welcome to the program. It's
Frank,
great to have you on.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I looked, and I've got to tell a little story. I got a hold of Michael the end of last week, or I think it was Saturday. I found out that there were copies of these books being sold at the Haverhill Public Library, and I said, could you ask someone to leave the book, as I said, at the front desk, and he said that'd be great. So I go down to the library on Saturday, and I see 2 books sitting on the shelf, and one of them's got my name in it. So I said to the woman at the research desk, I said, I think one of those is for me. I told her who I was. She hands me the book, and I leave. So then I'm thinking to myself, there's another book sitting there. I think it's for somebody else. Maybe somebody bought the book for someone else, and that other person was supposed to come pick it up. I said, I'm not so sure about this. So I turn my car around, and I go back, and I go in. Come to find out, this is a 2-volume book. So I was glad I went back. And I have to tell you, I looked over this over the weekend. There's so much information packed into this. Your dad's he performed a miracle here. He really did.
Certainly put a lot of hours.
Oh my God! There are records in here. There are records of the teams, the coaches, the players, touchdowns. Every statistic you can imagine is in here. There are photographs of almost every one of the teams over that 125-year history. There are pictures of cheerleaders in here. Anybody from Haverhill that would have looked through this book that's been around the town for, say, the last 20 years, I would imagine that they would probably find a relative who at some point was on one of these teams. There are posters in here that were made up during the various eras that these teams played. It is just an incredible book. You have to be very proud of what your dad did, and obviously you've done an awful lot of work to put this together yourself.
Well, thank you. Certainly I am, and in many respects, for my part of it, it was about honoring his work.
Yeah.
And that what drove me a bit.
Uh-huh.
I can't lay any credit to the actual research or things of that nature. He did all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I simply, it was there waiting for me to put it together.
Yeah.
And for almost a year, it sat at my house until I decided that I really needed to do something with it.
Yeah.
And then every night I would type into the computer, because everything he had done was paper and pencil.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to put it all into a digital form.
Sure.
And I've never done a book before. So I needed to search somebody out who could help me in that regard and things of that nature.
Right.
I had all along the idea of how I wanted it to be, but getting it to a final print was a big task.
Sure.
And all the pictures had to be taken of every team. There's 89 programs that are featured in the book. I would go through his material, and then I'd find something else and say, I have to find a way to incorporate that in the book. I came across, and I brought it with me, the actual 1916 dedication game for Haverhill Stadium. This is the program of, sorry.
No, that's okay.
The program that was played between Dartmouth and Georgetown in 1916 when the stadium was dedicated. And I said, now I have to do a page on the stadium and the dedication of it and a bit of its history. And so that got incorporated.
You have to be kind of happy in a way that computers came into existence, because I could see you with pieces of paper and Scotch tape inserting page upon page, building this thing.
Well, that's just certainly how it happened. Because,
wow.
Number one, I had to decipher what was there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out what kind of order I wanted it to be
Sure.
in. And then it was edit and re-edit and
So,
move things around.
I got to believe in the first 2 weeks you went, oh, wait a minute. What have I gotten myself into here?
Well, it took a year to do, because the whole time I was thinking that exactly is, do I really want to undertake this?
Yeah.
But the reality was to, I guess in many respects, to either discard it, which I didn't want to do.
No, you don't want that to happen.
Which I didn't want to do.
No, and I'm glad you didn't, because this is incredible.
Well, not only did I want to honor his work, but deep down, I wanted something for the city.
Yeah.
For everybody who's ever played the game,
Sure.
for everybody who's ever been involved in the game. As my dad says in the foreword, that families can trace generations in Hilly football.
Oh, without a doubt.
From grandfathers to fathers to sons.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, I really didn't want it to be lost.
Right.
And it's now truly an archive and a record, and anybody who wants to start from the 2016 season and go forward can add to it. But it's all right there from the very first game through the 2015 season.
Now, how he put this, he had a lot of this information. How did he manage to compile all of this, and over how long a time frame had he been working on this?
Well, my dad was a Haverhill High history teacher,
Well,
And
there's a
so-
start right
yeah,
there.
so
you got the interest right off the
He
bat.
had a keen interest in history, and as it says in the end with his picture, that his first love was photography, and he's probably more known as a photographer in the city in those years because he picked up the hobby of photography, and he made it to every football game for about 14 years,
Get
taking
out.
pictures, and he gave the pictures out to players and kids. They appeared in the Gazette, and they appeared in other publications. As a matter of fact, eventually he became very accomplished. We had a darkroom in the basement of our house.
Oh, yeah.
And develop all the pictures and give them out Monday morning to the students. But he also took pictures for Boston College, for Holy Cross, for Merrimack College. And one of his photos was on the front page of USA Today, a color photo of Gil Finnery when he was up for the Heisman Trophy.
No kidding.
He became quite accomplished as a photographer.
Yeah.
But his love for research is really what led him to this.
Oh, my
And so
God.
as he got more involved with the football program, you may not be aware of this, but for about a 10 or 12-year period, the football program in Haverhill published its own yearbook. And the vast majority of the pictures were my dad's, but Tom Vadabedian also was involved and did some photos as well.
Okay.
But they published their own yearbook just for the football program.
Right.
And so sometime in the early 70s, he began to research the program, and he spent thousands of hours going through microfilm. And not only did he put together a season with the records of who they played, but then he'd break it down to who scored.
Yes.
That's why, as you know in the back of the book, there's an A to Z of every person who's ever scored a point for the Hillies. And other than 2 games, and they were early games, turn-of-the-century games, that were unaccounted for in the newspapers, he's accounted for every point that's ever been scored.
Now, you had mentioned to me, too, when we chatted about this on the phone, that there were almost like conflicting accounts of some of the games that took place in terms of who scored, when.
There were.
Yeah.
And he mentions that that's why reporting is so important.
Yep.
And truthful reporting,
Yes.
and honest reporting.
Yes.
Because years later, when you try to put these things together, it's the only, in some cases, true document or true record. Today,
Right.
there's many other types of media forms,
Yep.
and so as such, that's not as necessary. But back then, the reporter who went to the game,
He
when
was the only
printed,
record.
He was the only record.
Yeah.
So when you look at something from 1910, there's no game films. There's only the record in the paper. And so when my dad did find discrepancies, he had to search deeper and deeper to try and figure it out and place it together. And luckily for him, as he says, sometimes he had to contact coaches,
Right.
when we're talking 50s, 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
not the early
Yeah.
games, but coaches or players who actually were in the games and things of that nature. So from that perspective, it was a great deal of work. He went to Boston Public Libraries. He went as far as Concord, New Hampshire, to find out about games. It's quite interesting.
Well, when you think about it, what a perfect. I mean, I can't think of anyone or any type of person with a different background than his to compile something like this, because he's a history professor. He loves photography. He enjoys research. I mean, this is right. This was right up his
I
alley.
guess it was an easy task.
Whoa, I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, he certainly spent thousands of hours doing it.
Yeah.
And my dad retired sometime around 1994.
Yeah.
And so he kept doing the records all the way through the 2015 season. And so he would piece it all together.
Yeah.
He would get him the newspapers and things like that. And he recompiled it and re-put people in order as to scoring records and field goal records and all the other things. So he started in the early 70s, but he continued for the next almost 50 years, 45 years.
So tell me a little bit. I noticed in reading through the book that there's a limited number of these that have been published.
Well, again, part of the whole thing about publishing and things of that nature, having never done it, I only intended to do one book. And I guess not really thinking of it ahead of time, 125 seasons with the records and the stats. I mean, you're already at 250 pages.
Yeah.
The book is approximately 440 pages all totaled.
Oh, yeah.
With 220 roughly in each volume.
Yep.
And it became 2 volumes because it was cheaper, if you will, to have done as 2 volumes than 1, because
Right.
the binding that would have been necessary would have been a much more complex
Well, yeah,
binding.
yeah.
So from that perspective, but I never figured this was going to be any type of bestseller or anything like that. So I was only going to print a limited number.
Yeah.
And the original intent was 300 copies, but
Yeah.
that was soft cover.
Right.
And I really didn't want to do a soft cover book.
Right.
And so it came to 500, of which somewhere around 260 have already been sold. And without much publicity and just a few little sales, 260 have sold. I've just recently taken an order to ship to Alaska. I sent 3 to Dan Conway for him and his brothers in California. I've sent to Tony Pendleton in New Jersey, to Maine, Naples, Florida. So the word gets out. They're watching your shows, they're reading the newspapers. So I have sent them around the country.
Well, if they are listening on WHAV.net, that's goes out over the internet, so that's all over the world. We also are broadcast on TuneIn Radio, which is an app available for anyone's laptop, their cell phone, their iPad. So it certainly, I think, will get some more exposure tonight. Tell me a little bit about, I know that you've had events where this has been sold. I would imagine for those people that may contact you from out of state. I think what we'll do is we'll take a break, and when we come back, we can talk about how a fan of Haverhill Hilly football can get a hold of this 2-volume set.
Great.
We'll be right back on the Open Mic Show.
Open mic!
Frank Komola and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
The Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom turns out local programs every day and night. Tune in for local news, Community Spotlight, and the Open Mic Show. 97.9 WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net.
Catch the wave!
Every Monday night, the Open Mic Show brings you fascinating guests, explores local history, and gives you a chance to praise the powers that be or vent your frustrations. I'm Frank Komola, your host, inviting you to join the chorus of community voices beginning at 6:30 Monday nights right here on 97.9 WHAV. You may also watch this staple of democracy live at WHAV.tv. Open Mic is part of the only Haverhill-based news source, WHAV.
WHAV Open Mic!
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
We're back here on the Open Mic Show. I'm Frank Komola. My guest is Michael Young. And we're talking about a labor of love right here. The book that his dad compiled all of the statistics with paper and pencil, and his son took on the task of getting all of that information collected and into a 2-volume book. And we're going to spend a few minutes now talking about how you can get a hold of a copy of this great book. I spent the weekend looking through this thing. I have to admit that I'm a Framingham, a kid from Framingham. But if you're from the Haverhill area, you lived in Haverhill, you have relatives in Haverhill, this is an incredible book. It's really well put together. A great deal of photographs of the teams, the cheerleaders, and a lot of the programs that were put together for these individual teams and their seasons, a boatload of statistics, in-depth statistics, like I've never seen before. This really is quite a piece of history, really. And so I thought Michael could spend a couple of minutes talking about how you could get a hold of a copy of this book.
I'm going to point out as well, too, like yourself, Frank, My dad's not a Haverhill guy either.
Oh, no kidding.
He grew up in Smithtown, Long Island. He's from
Really?
Long Island.
Oh,
so
wow.
he was an outstanding athlete himself, four-sport athlete, but he didn't play for Haverhill.
Oh, no kidding.
His two sons did. I did, and my brother did.
Yeah,
but he didn't. So that's another tidbit about
Yeah.
having done a book.
Oh, my God.
I've had 4 sales. I did 2 sales at Haverhill Stadium, and I did 2 sales at the Haverhill Public Library, which were well received. The book isn't, at the moment, for sale anywhere in a bookstore, things of that nature.
Right.
But I am on Facebook under my name or under the name Hillies Football. My number's there. You can contact me. I'll be happy to mail one to you. There have been days when I've delivered 10 in the city of Haverhill, so if you call me and you live locally, I'll drop one at your house, not a problem. At this moment, I don't have any sales presently scheduled. Okay.
But I will interrupt you for a second. Any of you out there that are interested in getting a hold of this book, what we can do is if you call here at the radio station at 978-374-1900, you could give Chris Porter and Master Control your name, address, and phone number, and I think Michael would be more than happy to get back to you and see if we can arrange for you to get a copy of these 2 volumes.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I also noticed in Volume 2, I believe your dad autographed this particular.
Oh, he might have. He's autographed some of them. Sure.
And how much are the 2 volume set?
$40.
That's a deal.
$40.
That's a deal and a steal, all in one.
Yeah. One book should be worth that, in all fairness, and I know
Yeah,
I'm not a printer and publisher.
without
but,
a doubt.
It's if that the 2 books are similar to high school yearbooks, although most high school yearbooks are somewhere about 140 pages,
Yeah.
220,
Yep.
and you would pay more for your high school yearbook.
Without a
$40
doubt.
for 2.
Without a doubt. I can't get over this thing. So you say you compiled it over a number of years, and then he kept it in files in his
It was
file
in 3
drawer?
by
or-
5 cards of everybody who scored.
All in 3 by 5 cards?
3 by 5 cards of all the different schools. If you wanted to look up and say, did we ever play Newton, you could look up alphabetically and find out if we ever played Newton, if we ever played Keene, New Hampshire, which we did, or any of the other schools. You could look that up, and those are in 3. They were all in spiral, the old metal spiral.
Almost like a Rolodex.
Yeah, and all on paper and pencil, and along with all the programs. There's somewhere between 400 and 500 pro football programs that he collected for 30 years.
Casey Paper must have made a few bucks off of him when he come down to get the 3 by 5 cards.
So, and that's why earlier when we say, it took a lot just to go through to see what was there.
Sure.
And how he organized it, so then I could start to begin to think how I would organize it for a book.
Yeah.
I will put a plug out to the Special Collections, who allowed me to photograph somewhere around 18 pictures that they had in their archives.
Right.
Many of these photos my father actually had. So the 1899 team, he had a photo. The 1896 team, I'm sure it's the only photo, no, the 1896 team. The 1898 team, he had these photos all in beautiful old oak frames that he had picked up. So a good portion, especially the older photos, he had. Some of those photos the library doesn't even have. And as you mentioned earlier, I think there's only 8 photos that aren't in there, team photos from 1890 to 2015. There's only 8 missing. And if somebody in the city has the 8 we're missing, it would be nice to add them somehow. But I don't know if they exist.
That's amazing. I love to score baseball games. I love to follow statistics. So when I started looking through this, I said, "This is amazing." I just can't get over it. And the photographs of the programs, it is really a yearbook of Hilly football for the last 125 years.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic piece of work. How, if somebody's interested, other than calling in here tonight, how would you like people to get hold of you?
They can go to Facebook and find me there again. They can find it under my name, Michael Young, or under Hillies. They can call me direct if you want my number. I'll give
Sure,
you that.
absolutely.
978-457-3101. 978-457-3101. And as I say, I'll be more than glad if you live locally to drop one to your home.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to get the remaining 240 books in the hands of the people that want them.
Yep.
I don't want to store them, and it's not about making money because it's not really a money maker.
No.
It was about doing it for the reasons I've stated, but I want the people who have played, I want the captains to have them, I want the coaches to have them. I'll tell you a short story. Yesterday, I received a phone call, totally unexpected, out of the blue on Father's Day, from Joe Carvin. Joe Carvin was the head coach from 1968 to 1982.
Mm-hmm.
He was given one as a Father's Day gift.
Yeah.
And he called me up to tell me, he couldn't say enough nice things about how well the book was done.
Yeah.
And he wanted my dad's address because Joe Carvin was also a history teacher at the high school with my dad. He wanted his address to drop him a note and tell him how much he enjoyed the book. So, people are getting it, and those are the people I want to get it.
Absolutely. Now, you have to tell me a little bit, after you got this all together and got the book printed and bound and everything else, tell me a little bit. I would imagine at some point you went to your dad with the final product.
He knew that I was going to put a book together, but he wasn't involved in the process in any way.
Oh, which is awesome.
Well, I thought too many people having their hands in it would either make it a much longer and complex situation, or people would want to change it. And since I was going to edit it and publish it, I figured
you're the guy that's doing all the work. You should have some control over what's going on.
Plus, in my head, I knew what I wanted to do. So yes, the day that I showed up with the first copy for him, he was ecstatic and pleased, and I think, like yourself and others who have had the opportunity to see it, it's been very well received.
Oh, it's overwhelming. It's really a work of art. It really is.
I'm not sure it would have ever got done if I didn't do it, and I'm not giving myself. I'm just saying that if I had let this just go in the box in the corner,
that's
forgotten,
that's way too good a thing.
There wasn't somebody else who was going to spend the 10,000 hours my father did
to
research this and do it.
What a fabulous addition this is. This is really cool. And one of the things that's very interesting too, when you look through this book, you hear about all of the history about football helmets and football uniforms. And I'll tell you, you go back to 1890, and these guys literally knocked heads.
Even if you look at the beginning, where how the scoring has changed over the years, and touchdowns were 4 points, and then became 5 points. And even in many respects, in the scoring records, you have to take into account that some of those people who played in 1890, their scoring is different.
That's right.
And when we look at the all-time leading scorers, I've made mention to that there's a gentleman, Omar Martin, who, if the points were recalculated a different way, up until it was just broken, he would have been the all-time leading scorer. But because he's in an old point category, he's only like fourth on the list of scoring. So to take those things into account, you have to understand the evolution of the game as well.
Very, very nice. Just amazing. This is something else. You and your dad, believe me, you should be commended for putting this together. Obviously, high school football was a big part of the history of this city. They had a tremendous fan base throughout the years, and it's interesting too, because you hear about programs that, for whatever reason, a lot of times financial, they have to discontinue certain sports because they don't have the money to keep them going. And obviously, football was a big part of the city of Haverhill because it's gone on for 125 years.
Sure. I mean, my father says that when he first came here to Haverhill, he couldn't believe that they had the stadium that they have, and they couldn't believe how it dominated the week's topic about who the next game was going to be against. And when you go through here and you looked at some games, there were 17,000 fans, 14,000 fans. And when you look at some of the pictures of the entire stadium full and people standing around, it's unbelievable, because for a brief period, and although Haverhill football seems to be on a big rebound, for a brief period there, 15 years, it really was in demise.
Yes, it was.
And it has seen a resurgence and a regrowth to that. But when you see those numbers of who used to show up at games, and it really was what bound the community together.
Yeah, it was true of the town of Framingham when I grew up. The big rivalry in Framingham back when I was a kid was Framingham and Natick on Thanksgiving, and the place was packed. And like you say, it was a topic of conversation throughout the town. On your end, so we have a phone call coming in. Who do we have on the line tonight?
This is Kevin Valier.
Kevin Valley. I see Mike.
Valier.
Valier.
Yeah.
Mike is smiling.
Long-time resident, big family here.
Yeah. Michael's smiling a little bit. Does Michael know you?
No, I'm not sure. We have a big family. He might know some of us.
I do not recognize the name.
Well, I'm sitting here with a Vietnam vet. He's 71 years old, and we just went up and saw the memorial at the Haverhill High School.
Yep. Very, very nice presentation up there. They did a great job.
Yeah, they did a nice job up there. We appreciate that very much. And that book that he has there, we'd like to get a couple copies of that if we could.
All right. You can either leave your information here with Chris in Master Control, or Michael gave out his phone number. You could call him directly to make arrangements to get it either dropped off at your house or mailed wherever you'd like.
Okay, well, I got an address, all that stuff.
Okay.
Right here in Haverhill.
Terrific. Thank you for the call, and I'm sure Michael is very pleased that you're interested in getting a copy of this 2-volume set.
You know, to do that. We have other books around here, kind of the same thing. Yeah, History of Haverhill. We love it.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the call, and you get in touch with Michael, and he'll make arrangements for you to get the books.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. This is 97.9 WHAV in Haverhill. We're going to break for the news, and we'll have a guest coming up in the last half hour of the program.
Open mic.
Frank Komola and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
It's 8:02.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. More than 200 Haverhill residents filled St. James Parish Hall Saturday to address growing concerns among the city's immigrants. The meeting was sponsored by the Merrimack Valley Project. No immigrant likes to leave their country, their customs, and their family, said project leader and Dominican immigrant Fermin de la Cruz. Unfortunately, many immigrants here in Haverhill feel that there now exists a culture of contempt against them, which can affect both their dignity as well as their basic human rights. Alice Mann of Trinity Episcopal Church echoed that sentiment. My ancestors left Ireland, Hungary, and Germany, some escaping religious or ethnic persecution, some seeking economic opportunity. Like so many others, they helped shape the soul of this American nation. Now the soul of our nation and the soul of our city are crying out for resistance against the currents of fear and hatred directed against immigrants. Seats were set aside for invited panelists Mayor James Fiorentini, Police Chief Alan Denaro, State Rep Brian Dempsey, and State Senator Kathleen O'Connor Ives, but the officials were not present. City officials were provided with an opportunity to hear these concerns through a number of first-hand experiences shared by members of the Haverhill immigrant community, as well as through a presentation on the state of immigration today. Officials were asked to reaffirm their commitment to the protection of the city's immigrant populations and to support policies that would help ease growing fear and uncertainty that many immigrants in Haverhill face today, according to a statement. WHAV's own Tom Bergeron returned to the Haverhill airwaves for a special air shift last Friday morning, reflecting on his early days at the city's radio dial and asking for the community's financial support of the station. In Haverhill during his summer break from ABC's Dancing with the Stars, Bergeron explained his purpose for stopping by.
First of all, let me commend you and everybody here for what you're doing, the incredible work you're doing to keep the legacy of local radio alive in Haverhill and the vicinity, and you know, obviously for me, having started at WHAV in 1972 when I was still in high school, you know how much I appreciate what you've been doing, and I'm happy to be a supporter of it, and this is a real treat to come back and visit, but also to underscore the nature of what WHAV now is and the importance of community support to keep it going.
Bergeron said he loved that his Friday air shift took place in the Edwin B. Johnson newsroom, noting it was the late Johnson who kicked off his career.
I was a student of his public speaking class, and with the expressed goal of impressing him enough to maybe get to WHAV, because I knew he was a newsman there. And it worked. My Machiavellian plan worked. And he introduced me to Ed Setlin, and I got a part-time gig while I was still at Haverhill High. And that what I felt when I walked through that door for the first time was just a heart-pounding excitement. I mean, I was a 17-year-old kid. I only ever wanted to be in radio. And there I was, and I was doing a Saturday night rock music show.
Bergeron took time to talk with Johnson's widow, Pat.
I've often told the story of how my career began. Ed was always much too modest in deflecting my appreciation for it, but he really got me started. He really was the one that turned it into a reality for me.
Yeah, and you've never forgotten that,
no.
Which is wonderful.
She explained she met Ed while she also worked for WHAV. Recalling his time on the air, Bergeron remembered how he'd play a few tricks on Haverhill listeners on extra-long air shifts. He explained he would work from 6 a.m. to noon, take a lunch break, and then work another hour.
And I would just pretend to be somebody else, Dustin Hannah, which of course for people knowledgeable of Haverhill history is Hannah Dustin backwards.
Bergeron's morning show on WHAV was a big hit. He laughed, however, his engineering skills fell short. He reflected on his time operating a 7-second tape delay for Bill Pike on the open mic.
It was a mess. I couldn't figure out how it worked. The tapes came off and I bloodied my hands, and poor Bill Pike is in there. And he's trying to vamp, because now we're not on delay, and he's trying to take calls live. And Ed Setlin, God bless him, came in the next day and said, "Yeah, you got to have the glasses." And he goes, "Tommy, it was the worst thing I've ever heard in radio."
In between sharing memories and chatting with listeners, including contest winner Cheryl Como, Bergeron pledged his continued support for nonprofit, non-commercial radio stations like WHAV.
What you are doing here, and I don't think people realize it, is a publicly supported station. So you depend on, particularly at this time when journalism anywhere is under fire, just for economic reasons, if not political ones, it's a tough time to be a journalist or to run either a newspaper or a broadcast station. And this particular type of station now depends on listener support.
WHAV offers a number of ways listeners may contribute. A variety of memberships, including the News Leader membership, may be found at whav.net. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at whav.net. In the Edwin B. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. Russia says it will regard U.S. coalition aircrafts in Syria as targets after the downing of a Syrian military plane over the weekend. French police have launched a terror investigation after a man ran his car into a police van on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And UK authorities have named the suspect believed to have driven his car into a group of Muslims outside a mosque in London.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with wave weather. Scattered showers and thunderstorms, some locally heavy during the night, low temperature into the upper 60s. And then breaking clouds developing on Tuesday, humidity dropping back a bit during the afternoon, 80 to 84. Scattered clouds and comfortable weather Tuesday night, low 60s. Mostly sunny, a slight chance of showers by Wednesday evening, high temperature 80. This is Gary Bess, your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
This is Pacifica Radio for the Merrimack Valley, WHAV. Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave, WHAV, Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Welcome back, everyone, for the last half hour of tonight's program. I just wanted to mention, and as you can see if you're watching us on television, the nice folks at Jabberwocky Bookstore in the Tannery at 50 Water Street in Newburyport have donated a book tonight, a book to us for tonight's broadcast. David Ortiz and sports radio talk show host Michael Hawley have written Ortiz's autobiography entitled Pappy, My Story. This book is currently on the top 10 list for nonfiction in the greater Boston area. Whether you're interested in getting the book for yourself or for an upcoming baseball fan's birthday gift, or any occasion for that matter, it can be yours if you're the first caller to start or renew a $100 membership to Haverhill's own public radio station, 97.9 WHAV. Just call Chris Porter here in Master Control at 978-374-1900. And you have the option of either using a credit or debit card over the phone, or you can mail a check here to our studios. Once you've purchased your membership, we will make arrangements to get Poppy's book to you. I've looked through it. It's a fantastic, fantastic book. And let's see where we are here. My guest in this half hour is attorney Paul Magliocchetti. He is one of the partners in the law firm Sheehan, Schiavone, Jutras, and Magliocchetti, and he is also the chairman of the board of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce, recently elected, correct? Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you very much, Frank.
Paul is here tonight to talk about an exciting event he and a group of Haverhill business people and citizens hope to bring back to the city later this summer or into the fall, right?
End of August 27th.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit.
Okay, sure. It's called the Shoe City Pro Circuit. It's going to be a bicycle race through and around downtown Haverhill.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that my father and I actually did back in the early 90s. And actually, Joe Bevilacqua worked together with us. He was a city planner at the time.
Uh-huh.
And we were part of a bicycle group out of Plastow called the BOB. And president of the club was Dwayne Schofield, and we wanted to do a race through downtown Haverhill.
Mm-hmm.
So we organized it, and at the time it was called the Haverhill Cycling Classic. And that carried on for about 6 or 7 years. It got moved from downtown Haverhill to the industrial park. And then it ended up getting moved out of the city for various reasons.
I remember when it was in the city. I remember hearing about it. I hadn't lived in Haverhill that long. I think it showed up in the media somewhere, and I went down onto the boulevard, and I was amazed at how fast these cyclists went flying through town. It's incredible.
A lot of people don't realize that when we started the race, we had world-class cyclists. I
mean,
we had riders that rode, with Greg LeMond, Lance Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
We had Tyler Hamilton, Tyler Moreau. These were guys that rode the Tour de France and those world-class cycling races that lived in the area, trained in the area, and they actually participated in the race. So it was really a national caliber riders.
You had said that the season for them is ahead of the time of the year when you were having this event in Haverhill. So they were very excited about participating in something in the local area.
Yeah, because these riders, there are different categories of riders. There are licensed riders, usually category 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they compete in races throughout the season, and they get points depending on where they place themselves in the race.
Yep.
So the season usually begins around April and it ends around September.
Right.
So our race was always the end of August, beginning of September. So towards the end of the season, where you would always have, 6 or 7 riders that were competing for points for,
That's perfect.
national
Yeah.
titles. So it was always a good race in that regard. They wanted it bad. They wanted to compete. They wanted to win. So it was always a very competitive race.
So we've got a challenge ahead of us, and I say we because I'm very excited about this. So
Yeah.
we've got a few hurdles to go over to make this happen, right?
Yeah, we do. We've been moving along. We've actually been meeting. This all started at a Haverhill Chamber of Commerce meeting. One of the members of the board, Matt Juros, who owns Fishbrook Design Studios.
Yep,
in
I spoke with
downtown
him
Haverhill.
today. Yeah.
Matt's a great guy. He's got a ton of energy. He's a cyclist himself. And Jim Traver, who owns James Page Insurance downtown with his father, Chuck Traver. The three of us got together at a meeting, and Matt happened to mention how he had the idea of doing a bicycle race in Haverhill, and I mentioned to him about the history with my father. So the three of us decided to get together and see what we could do. And next thing you know, we got a group of 7 or 8 people, and we're meeting in my office every Thursday from 2 to 3.
So you've actually, you've taken on, because I remember you telling me how your dad was really pushing you to get this started
back in the
90s.
Yes.
And now, fast forward to today, and look who's here. Passed along to the next generation.
That's okay. Great things are happening in Haverhill, and we got to keep promoting it. You got to keep pushing it.
Absolutely.
And it's something I enjoy doing.
We're going to take a break right now. We'll be back in a few minutes with the open mic.
Open mic.
Frank Komola and the open mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 FM WHAV.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Gary Best. Do you need to know if it's going to be hot or cold, wet or dry? Well, find out every half hour, 7 days a week with Wave Weather. I'll keep you in touch with up-to-the-minute reports covering the greater Merrimack Valley and beyond. It's WHAV for accurate weather when you want it.
Community Spotlight.
If you have questions about Medicare options and benefits, Shine, serving the health insurance needs of everyone, may provide answers. Shine is a source of free, accurate, and unbiased information regarding health insurance and healthcare options. In Haverhill, the program is administered by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs in partnership with the Haverhill Council on Aging, 10 Welcome Street. Appointments with a certified Shine counselor may be made by calling Wendy at 978-374-2390, extension. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news@WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Diane Carr.
WHAV. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Welcome back to the open mic. I'm Frank Komola, and I have Paul Magliocchetti, the chairman of the board of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce, and also one of the partners in the law firm Sheehan, Schiavone, Jutras, and Magliocchetti. And we're talking about a bicycle race that Paul and several other business owners in the city are hoping to have take place the end of August. Paul and I were just talking for a couple of minutes, and I told me that they hope to have 200 to 300 bicyclists in this event. A great opportunity, as we talked about the city of Haverhill and all of the events, all of the events that are taking place this fall, and this is going to be. We've got a great city here, and every one of these events helps to promote our great city. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the logistics, I think, that go into trying to create an event like this in downtown Haverhill.
It's not a simple thing to do, but going back to like the riders, we're going to bring 200 to 300 riders, most of which are coming from outside the Haverhill area. A lot of them have never been to Haverhill. They've never seen the city. It's a great way to showcase everything that's going on, all the great things going on in downtown Haverhill. The route goes down Washington through part of Merrimack Street and cuts through, a whole restaurant district up through Bailey Boulevard. It's a great route. The riders love it. It's very popular with the racers. And, I have to give a lot of credit to the other people that are organizing this. Matt Giros took charge, and he's really the head guy. I'm just his support staff. James Traver at James Page Insurance, Attorney Sue Becker in my office. Kurt Johnson, who owns River City Cycles. He's heavily involved. Ted Horowitz, he's a writer and a designer. Elon Sablich. I mean, these people that have dedicated themselves to getting this race up and running and showcasing the city of Haverhill. So there's a lot of excitement. And, we've talked to a lot of the local businesses, most of whom are excited about it and the prospect.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Now, the way it's going to be run, this is a criterium race, or a crit for short. So it's, if you watch the Grand Prix car race, how it goes through the city or town, that's basically what this is for bicycles. It's a less than a mile route around downtown, and they take laps. So each race will be about 40 to 50 laps.
Right.
They'll be timed. They'll be under an hour. There'll be 4 races, one for each category, and they'll be timed. They'll all be about 50 minutes. So you have a few minutes between races for the cyclists to change up.
Right.
And they go fast. So I don't know if you've ever been to one of these races, but
yeah, back in the 90s when they had it in downtown Haverhill, I remember standing on the side of the road, and I was blown away by just how quick
when they
go tearing down the
downtown. They're going to be hitting 30 miles an hour on the bikes.
As a matter of fact, years ago, when I lived in Framingham, where I grew up, they had some of these races down in the parking lot at Chopper's World, and I remember seeing them down there too.
That's right. Yeah, they used to section them off.
Yeah.
And and one of the things we want to do is we want to make it an event to bring business downtown. So the hope is we're going to actually set up barriers all around the route.
Right.
And so that the sidewalks, so that all the restaurants and the cafes, they'll be able to have outside seating, so that you can go out and have your coffee or whatever, or your pastry. And just participate in the race while you're enjoying yourself at the local restaurants or the cafes.
Makes perfect sense.
Because it really is, when you think about what downtown Haverhill has become, it's ideally set up for.
Without a doubt.
Salem, Mass does one, Beverly does one, and they do it with great success. They've been doing it for a few years now. It's being the first one that we're doing in a while in Haverhill. It is a little bit complicated.
Right.
We have been working closely with the police department as far as the route and the access plan, because all the development that's happened downtown, it has complicated things a little bit, because we do have to accommodate all the residents, especially the elderly residents that are living downtown. So we have developed an access plan. We're going to make sure that there are emergency vehicles on site. We're going to make sure that people can come and go during the race. They might have to be a little patient to let the riders go by. But we're trying not to inconvenience the people that live there too much.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I spoke with you about this last week, you talked about the day of the week that you had selected, so that the inconvenience was minimized. Yeah. The time of day on that date that you were having the race. played into the planning as well.
Yes, it did. We're planning on doing it on a Sunday between 11 and 4.
Mhm.
And then after the race, when we give away all the prizes, we're going to try to hold it in one of the lots. So either the lot behind where the tap,
Right.
something similar to the River Ruckus.
Mhm.
We set up a stage
Mhm.
and you have some tents set up with food vendors.
Right.
Maybe a beer tent set up, or where the local bars can have little booths.
Right,
They can sell
right.
sell their
Yeah.
beers or whatever. So we want to make it an event. We want to make it an
Uh-huh.
event, like I said, people enjoy themselves, they have a good time, and like I said, we showcase the city.
Yeah, they
And
walk away
people
from
get
an
to
event
see.
like that and they say, wow, Haverhill's got a lot to offer.
right.
It's a great place to visit, an even better place to live, and we all know that. And this sounds tremendous. I'm really looking forward to this. So tell me the date that you have planned for this is?
August 27th, Sunday, August 27th, between 11 and 4. That's the plan right now. We have a couple weeks left to get everything ironed out.
Mhm.
We do need to get our permits from the city council.
Yep.
So we've set a clock with ourselves. And so within 2 weeks, we're going to know absolutely whether or not we'll be able to go through with this race this year.
So this is going to come up before the city council?
It has to, yes.
Right.
It has to be permitted.
Yep,
Yes, yes.
yep. When you get a little bit more information on when that city council meeting is taking place, if you can pass it along to us here at WHAV.
Absolutely. And I want to stress something. Like I told you before, this all started. The seeds were planted at the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
It is so important to have a local business organization with local businesses that are on the board
Mhm.
that have a vested interest. in the
Without a
community.
doubt, they very
And,
definitely do.
I mean, look at Kids Fest, look at the Christmas stroll, look at the cycling race if we get
Mhm.
it up and
Mhm.
going. I mean, all these things are spawned off the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
There are so many great things, and that's why when my turn came up to be the chairman, as you know, I had on. In
Just
my
a
life,
little.
where, we're very busy law practice. But you know what? It's something that I'm embracing, and I'm very excited about. The Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce has great people. The
Mhm.
people that work there, they're vested in the community. We have
Mhm.
a former mayor that works there. He's
Mhm.
recruiting people.
Mhm.
Beverly Donovan's done a phenomenal job.
She sure has.
And I have such respect and admiration for the people on the board that have served for so many years, and they really and truly care about our community. I can't express to people enough.
Mhm.
It's not about ego. It's not about selfish things. It's about the city of Haverhill and what we can do to make it a better place to live.
And the thing is, over the last 4 or 5 years that I've lived here, there's a lot that's happened in that time frame that makes it such an incredible city.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got the boardwalk now on one side of the river. They've just opened up the Bradford Rail Trail, and I have to tell you, my wife and I live about maybe 3 blocks from there. We've been down there 4 or 5 times already. My wife's been down there with her sisters to walk.
beautiful down
It
there.
is a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
I've seen at least a couple of dozen people along, and I mean the trail goes along the river there. I've seen at least a couple of dozen people every time we've gone down there, and every one of them speaks about how excited they are to have that there. The city's coming alive. It really is. And for all of the people you talk about that have been working at this for so long, it has to be so exciting to see that work starting to come to fruition.
It is. It is exciting, especially someone like me. I'm the 4th generation to live here in Haverhill.
No kidding.
My great-grandfather founded us here.
Is he in Mike's book?
No, I don't think he is. And
Uh-huh.
then my grandparents were here. My parents, I'm the generation.
Yeah.
And I've lived here all my life, seen the good, the bad.
Sure.
And me and my generation that came back, we're all starting to get a little more active now. Our
Yeah.
kids are getting older.
Yeah.
So we have some time. We're giving back. We've done well here.
Mhm.
So like I said, this is just one great thing that's happening in downtown Haverhill.
Yeah.
And we just got to showcase it. We got to emphasize positive things like this.
Yep.
Because we tend to get negative press from time to time.
Mhm.
But we're a city.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's up to us. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to everybody out there to make it the kind of city we want it to be.
I've always known that there was a lot going on in this city, but I have to say that since I've come here to work at this radio station and I started doing community spotlights, the number of events that nonprofit organizations in particular are undertaking in this city to help out whatever their cause happens to be, and they create these great events in the process. And the Kids Fest, what you're attempting to do the end of August, it's a great showcase for an incredible city.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
The thing we're doing is we're actually tying this in with Creative Haverhill, which is doing all the arts. And they're a 501c3.
Right.
So for our sponsors, whatever money we make off of this, because we're a nonprofit, we're donating it to Creative Haverhill.
Oh, that's perfect.
So all your sponsorship dollars will be tax deductible, and we are sponsors right now.
Okay.
So there'll be sponsorships available on the webpage as soon as we get it up and running, hopefully next week.
Terrific.
Once we get everything confirmed.
Well.
So I hope that all the business people out there take a look, and I hope that they sponsor us so we can get this up and running and we can make it an annual event. That's what we're really trying to do.
Well, I can tell you that once you get the website up, up and running, get a hold of me, and I'd be happy to do a community spotlight for it. And as this moves forward, I'm sure that I'll have an opportunity to bring you back onto the show and talk about the progress that's being made and a little bit of details of the event. It sounds very, very exciting.
I really appreciate it. But again, this is not a Haverhill Chamber event, but it did start at the Haverhill Chamber. And it's really Matt Juros of Fishbrook Designs. He's the guy taking the lead, and I got to give credit where credit is due. He's done a phenomenal job, and he makes sure everyone's at my office, even if I'm not.
Well, listen, I want to thank all of my guests that have been on tonight, including Paul, and look forward to having you tune in to us again next week. This has been the Open Mic Show with Frank Komola. Have a great night, everyone.
Open Mic!
Join Frank Komola live on the Open Mic again next Monday night at 6:30. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of WHAV, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom.
It's 8:31.